I'm sorry I ever met you. I'm sorry I ever got into your stupid car.
As if you had so many more appealing options.
I've never had anyone make me feel as cheap as you did today.
Somehow I find that very hard to believe. Where are you going?
I want my money. I want to get out of here.
I saw you talking to David Morse. I didn't like it.
You were just talking.
I didn't like it.
You hurt me.
Yes.
Don't do it again.
Hello, Rubies. Welcome back to another episode on the Ruby Pink Mindset channel. And we are back for our lessons that we're learning from those iconic movies that really shaped us when we were younger women. And one of my favorite is Pretty Woman. I love it. I can watch Pretty Woman over and over and over again. And this episode, I'm going to be showing you some of the lessons that I learned as I started to get older. I think when I was a younger young lady, I didn't really understand. It came across as if it was like a Prince Charming type of movie for me. But as I got older, I started to look at Pretty Woman extremely differently. And one of the things that really stuck out to me is the psychology behind how people think when you actually upgrade your life, why people feel entitled to your life. So in this episode, I know you're going to be expecting me to talk about how Pretty Woman is just simply about a rich man rescuing a woman. Even though sometimes these things happen once in a lifetime, that movie was not about that. That movie should have taught us as young women how men really act in the world towards a woman that levels up. Because we saw both sides. And I'm going to show you inside of this episode. Now, today, I want to break down access. Pretty Woman should have taught you about access. Because throughout the film, the most revealing character was never Edward. Edward stayed the same up until the end where he became more outgoing. But one of the characters that we saw in the background, and we didn't realize him changing as time went on, it was Stucky. It was Stucky because that was Edward's business partner. And I want you to see how he became jealous when Edward found other things other than business. It was how he acted when he realized how Vivian leveled up. I want to break this down. And I felt like, oh my goodness, I had like an aha moment. And what Pretty Woman reveals to many women, and this is something we really don't understand until we encounter men like Stucky, is that a man's behavior is always going to change when he realizes that you are not accessible to everyone else. I want you to know this. But what really changes even more about Stucky inside of Pretty Woman was when he realized that Vivian, the new Vivian, was unavailable to him, and we got to see a very dark side of him. So I want to break down the psychology about access, because that's what Pretty Woman really teaches us. We learn about access, we learn about desire, we learn about status, and we learn why some women will always have that it factor once they have standards and boundaries, and you can become that too. Now, the first lesson that I learned from Pretty Woman is that men will always value what they don't have access to easily. Free game. Men will always value what they cannot have access to easily. From both Stuckey, which was Edward's business partner, and also Edward himself. Edward respected Vivian when Vivian stopped thinking like a streetwalker and started to think like a woman. When she started to begin to have boundaries within herself and she didn't let Edward talk to her any kind of way, she didn't let Edward treat her any kind of way, you notice that Edward started to gain respect for her. Because Vivian realized that even though Edward had the resources, she still was a woman with value regardless of the lifestyle that Edward was technically getting her away from. That's powerful. Now, what I want you to think about, look at Edward's business partner. When he realized that Vivian was groomed, Vivian was beautiful, Vivian had the other women talking to the tournament when Edward actually carried her out amongst other people. He admired Vivian's beauty, but what he did not like is that Edward have access to it, but I don't. Because he felt like him and Edward were supposed to share everything, even Vivian. Even Vivian. So one of the biggest mistakes that women make inside of dating in general that I learned from Pretty Woman, and of course, it took time as I got older to understand this, is that you can never confuse attention with value. You can get attention from anyone, but your access has to be on lock. That's what I learned that was one of the lessons that I learned from Pretty Woman. You could receive 100 compliments, 100 messages, 100 invitations. That does not mean that you are valued. What creates value is when access becomes limited. I guarantee you, if Edward didn't feel as if that Vivian was only accessible to him, he may have treated her differently. And the moment a man realizes that I can't immediately have this woman, I can't treat her any kind of way, his brain then begins to evaluate her differently. So as a Ruby and as a woman, Pretty Woman should really teach us that it does not matter what you have done in the past. It does not matter what people think of you in your past. In that current moment, when you meet a new person, reinforce respect and boundaries from the beginning. Vivian wasn't playing games. Vivian was straightforward. She was about her business. Whether she was quoting her price as a nighttime walker, whether she was not allowing Edward to speak to her any kind of way and walking out of that hotel room and leaving that money on the bed, Vivian still stood her ground. Not because she was playing games, but she realized that although Edward had everything, Edward didn't have companionship that was authentic. And she realized that she had that. So she realized that there was a capital that she had that Edward wanted. And this should apply to everything inside of life. Scarcity, boundaries make you valuable as a woman, regardless of what the world thinks. You see it in everyday life. You see it in luxury brands. You see it in exclusive memberships. You see it in rare opportunities. You see it. And believe it or not, yes, beautiful women also have a scarcity aspect about them that people want once you're scarce. The less available something is, the more carefully people will evaluate it. Even if it's in a good or positive way or a bad and negative way. That's one. Now, the next lesson that we learn from Pretty Woman is that beauty is always going to create desire, but your boundaries have to create the respect. Vivian was beautiful from the beginning. Whether she was wearing her ginger hair or she was wearing the blonde bob, she was beautiful from the beginning. The makeover really wasn't what changed everything for her life, Her beauty was always there. Many women spend years just focusing on how they look. They only focus on becoming attractive. But attraction alone is never going to be enough. Never. Because the attraction is what gets the attention. It gets you in the door. Don't get me wrong. But you can still be a beautiful woman and still be taken for granted. So there has to be a balance. A woman could still be as stunning as a gem and still disrespected. A woman could be gorgeous and still viewed as temporary. This is why I always tell women, beauty opens doors, but standards is going to determine what happens after that door opens. And I always tell you on this channel, if you don't understand your gifts and your leverage as a woman, somebody will come and misuse it and exploit it. You better believe it. Now, the third lesson that we learned from Pretty Woman is that, believe it or not, most people in the world, most powerful people in the world, people that know that being connected to them is valuable, they will always test you before they invest in you. I'm telling you, anytime, and this is us coming out of the things that we learned as women that is outdated. Or some of these things women don't even teach other women, because if I teach you everything, I have more competition. One of the things I want you to realize is when you're dealing with anybody in this lifetime, Ruby, is if you see somebody that's more successful than you, has more resources than you, has more connections than you, they don't just allow people to enter into their life easily. They will test you. And one thing that's completely misunderstood about high achieving people in life is that we think that because they have it all, they will invest immediately. That's incorrect. That's incorrect. And I want you to know why. I told you I learned this from Pretty Woman. Edward observed Vivian. Edward evaluated Vivian. He tested her too. Not always intentionally, but through that whole conversation inside of the car when he did not know how to drive. He found out that Vivian was more than a nighttime walker. And although when Vivian entered the car, his intention was just to get to that Beverly Hills hotel. But after that, that's when he invited Vivian to stay. Successful people, and this is just learning about socializing and networking. It's important that you know these things as a woman. Successful people are constantly assessing the risk. I'm telling you, anytime as a woman, and you're going to have to learn this because you can't do this alone. There will be times that God would put destiny connectors to you, destiny helpers to you, and you're going to have to know how to handle them. Successful people always assessing the risk. That whole conversation, he was assessing the risk. Edward wasn't just impressed because Vivian was beautiful. Edward in his lifetime, in his field of work, was always surrounded by beautiful women. The reason that Edward really, really was captivated by Vivian because she was authentic. There was something interesting. She was unpredictable, but in a good way. And she was never intimidated by his power. Beauty isn't the only thing that keeps those successful people around you, it isn't the only thing that keeps their attention. Allow beauty to get you in the door, Rubies, but also make sure you know that you have the skills needed to stay there. I did an episode on feminine hobbies that women should start to look into to become a more interesting woman. Start working on it now. Now, the fourth lesson that we learned from Pretty Woman is that Edward's business partner, Sticky, whatever his name, right? Whatever is his name. One of the things is that I realized entitlement. How people feel so possessive over a gifted, beautiful, wonderful, made woman. I realized how dark the entitlement can get, because even at some point, Edward did something to hurt Vivian's feelings because he felt entitled. He felt like he owned Vivian. And when Vivian felt as if Edward was treating her like an object, Vivian told Edward absolutely no. Keep the money, I'm gone. She told Edward, you made me feel cheap. And I think that was the most interesting psychology breakdown for me as I was watching the movie again, is that Edward, business partner, really shows you how people in this world think. They feel that you owe them your looks, you owe them your intelligence, you owe them access to you because you have it. And Edward, business partner, wasn't attracted to Vivian because Vivian was beautiful. He became really interested in her after realizing that Edward wasn't talking much about Vivian, so Edward liked Vivian enough not to share her. That's when he became interested in Vivian. He became interested when he noticed that Edward wanted to protect her. The psychology of people that feel like they deserve access to things that they did not work for is mind-blowing. And I learned this really in Pretty Woman, and I saw it with my own two eyes. When people, and you're going to meet men like this, Rubies, when people are accustomed to getting what they want, rejection is always going to feel unfamiliar. Warlocks, they don't take rejection very well. They will get extremely aggressive. They will call you out your name. They will try to belittle you. They will try to make you feel insecure because they're not used to hearing no. And basically, for some people, unfamiliarity becomes obsession if you don't know how to deal with it. That's why monitoring spirits and people that are jealous are obsessed with people that don't reveal a lot about their lives. You don't notice that when you don't allow a monitoring spirit to get information on you, they become increasingly more aggressive, more obsessive. And that's because you challenge their ego. And that's why I want women, you have to learn the difference between desire, possession, investment, and obsession. That's going to be one of our episodes. Let me make sure I write this down somewhere. That is going to be our next episode. The difference between desire, possession, investment, and obsession. They are not the same thing. A man wanting access to you is not proof that he values you. And it took me a while to learn this as a woman. I don't think this is a conversation we have a lot in our community where a wiser woman is telling a younger woman that. Let me let you know this now. If nobody ever told you this, just because a man wants access to you, it is not proof that he actually values you. Sometimes it simply means he dislikes being denied, or he just is greedy. He just is lustful. That's it. Now, the fifth lesson that I learned from Pretty Woman, and I think this is one of the most valuable lessons in the movie, and I was so happy when I came across this point. When a woman changes her environment, she could change her life. I talked about this before. Coach Ruby gave you an episode on this channel about how environments work against gifted women. How environments are made to drain your gift and steal your destiny from you. The woman who changes her environment will always change her life. The real transformation in Pretty Woman was not Vivian's clothes, although they were stunning. It wasn't even the hotel. It wasn't the shopping. It was the exposure. When Vivian got in the shop and she was around people, she realized that she was out of place because these women were more clothed than her. They were more tasteful. They had more etiquette. And Vivian realized that she was exposed to a whole new world that she was not used to. Vivian entered rooms she had never entered before. He took her to places like the opera. He took her on a date to this beautiful opera musical. And she enjoyed it. Exposure. As a woman, you should always be seeking exposure. Don't get comfortable staying in one place. Vivian saw possibilities she had never seen before. She experienced a different standard of living. She experienced a different standard of conversation. She experienced a different standard of expectation. And I truly believe once a woman sees more for herself, it's very difficult to return back to thinking small. Many level ups or glow ups are going to begin externally. They will. But the most powerful women, as I watch and observe women they're just admirable. The most powerful transformations, they start internally by working on their mindset. They start the renewing of the mind. When Vivian was exposed to those type of people, her mind changed. When your environment expands as a woman, your standards will begin to expand. Your vision will begin to expand. Your future will start to expand. Get out of your city, get out of your hometown, leave the job, take something on new, take on another career role, take on another place of work or employment, travel, go to that country, exposure. Open up your mind to a new world. Pretty Woman, it might have come across as a romance story. It definitely was a beautiful romance story. But one of the things that I always want you to remember as a woman is this word, access. Who has access to me and what am I becoming accessible to? The people who value themselves differently move through the world differently. Once Vivian began to value herself after being exposed to Edward, she started to see herself differently, which is why in the closing part of the episode, she said, I want to go back and I want to pursue this. Edward, you can go on with what you're doing, but I want to pursue this, even though Edward still turned around and came back for her. The people who protect their access as well, they are treated differently. And people who understand their value, they will always stop chasing the attention and start evaluating opportunities. That's why when Vivian was around men that may have had more money than Edward, Vivian wasn't looking at that. Vivian was just truly trying to enjoy the moment. That's it. She was just trying to enjoy the event. Edward misinterpreted, but she was truly just trying to enjoy the event. And as a woman, I want you to start evaluating your opportunities that you have around you. Get out of your mind, the goal is for me to be desired by everyone. No, the goal is to become unforgettable by the right people who are going to change your life. That's what it is. That's feminine strategy. Feminine strategy. Access. Am I working on myself enough to make the decision of who is hired and fired to be around me? Am I looking at my environments? Am I elevating as a woman to get in these environments? Am I changing the way that I speak, the way that I walk, the way that I look, the way that I interact? Ask yourself these things. Now, if you're building your beauty, your confidence, your femininity, your personal brand this year, make it exciting. Make it exciting and enjoy this process. If you feel like you're going to be all over the place, remember you have the vault. And I created the vault for women who are serious about becoming their higher self. That's what the vault for. If you're willing to do the work every day, because it's not another set of videos of you listening to Coach Ruby, you actually have to get up and look at what you have on the app and get it done. In the vault, you will learn about how to glow up your beauty, your elegance, self-development, mindset, dealing with soul ties, dealing with money, understanding how a woman becomes attractive and untouchable. Because this year, you have 6 more months left. 6 more. 6 more months left. Get to work. And if you have not watched Pretty Woman, remember all of these lessons I taught you. I want to say them again. And I want you to write them down, and I want you to look for it as you watch Pretty Woman again. Pretty Woman was teaching us about access to opportunities and access to people who want access to us but didn't work for it. So you have to be vigilant. As you're glowing up, you got to be cautious of a warlock, a vulture, a rhinoceros, a hippopotamus, a bat, an owl, and a fox lurking in the background to stop you. So the lessons that I want you to keep in mind as you're watching Pretty Woman again is 1, men value what they cannot access easily. 2, beauty will always create desire, but your boundaries are going to create your respect. 3, powerful people and successful people often test before they allow you to be around them or invest in you. 4, you will always see the dark side and the entitlement of people when you start to level up. You will see it. Be aware of it. And 5, the woman who changes her environment will change her life. Thank you for coming to another episode on the Ruby Pink Mindset channel. And Coach Ruby will see you next time. Bye.
When you're not fidgeting, you look very beautiful and very tall.